What's up, everyone? Welcome to today's video. Welcome to the Video Game Fight School channel. Thank you very much for tuning in. Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League has reopened what I think are old wounds that have been, for the most part, misguided in the way we've seen them. The gaming community has suffered from terrible games that have come out under the guise of wanting to serve the audience, but then spring upon you some crappy practices, unfair monetization, and so on and so forth. And so when people see these kinds of games, there is arguably a deserved whiplash that can come into perspective. I understand this, and I really wanted to go ahead and say that I am not necessarily, oblivious to this fact, and I'm not a fan of these practices. Whenever these full-price video games come out and start wanting to do nonsense, I just ignore all of the shenanigans. I play the game for what it is, get my money's worth, and I bounce. If I don't intend to stay there and purchase any transactions or any extra content or whatnot, I don't do that. However, we have to be able to say, okay, where is the dividing line in regard to monetization in video games? I say where most of the consensus in the gaming community is thinking sensibly about this. So games rated E should not have monetization practices in that regard that are accessible by children. And I say this as somebody who enjoys what Unreal Engine and Epic Games is doing based on Fortnite money, but children should not be, allowed without supervision to be able to acquire as it means to buy, microtransactions in video games. However, I also see another sentiment around this conversation that some people continue to say, well, these games should not be a thing, they shouldn't exist, and so on and so forth. But the one thing I really wanted to make sure that I highlight is the fact that these games, these live service games, do not conflict the single player games. There is really no conflict between them in that regard of, say, maybe they're competing for, who gets made. If anything, they're competing for your time because, as crazy as it may sound, it's like every studio out there or every publisher or every developer at least is thinking about possible ways of growing their business. And in order for them to be able to do so, most of them are dabbling into the live service ventures, even though they've been established single player, game developers or game publishers. Now, the big example for Suicide Squad, and the reason that I actually did highlight it, is because it is coming from a publisher whom has arguably been really shaky in their, I would say, delivery of games. For some instance, it's maybe the marketing and so on and so forth. But in the case of Suicide Squad, it's because it's, being developed by a studio who has made single player games in the past. A lot of people are, expecting Arkham, but they're getting a Suicide Squad live service game. And so in their minds, this is all that they can see. When if they would step back and zoom out a little bit, they'll realize that the picture is just bigger or slightly bigger than what their vision is capable of actually, taking into account when all is said and done. The same publisher actually released the highest selling game of 2023, and that highest selling game was a single player game. This same publisher is now dabbling into a live service game, and you can tell that this is just to, in a sense, bolster their library. And even from the offshoot of this single player game that they sold the highest number of, they're making other, offshoot games, including a live service version that will be in the Quidditch, ecosystem. So Hogwarts Legacy is published by Warner Brothers. They're making single player games. It's not in conflict with the live service games. The only thing that may make people actually see that is maybe that they were thinking they would rather have gotten another single player superhero game, but instead they're getting a live service game. The reality is the entire Warner Brothers library and the way they're doing business does not consider a lot of, say, the superhero fans primarily. What they consider is their profits first. This is how businesses are. They don't necessarily, care about any of us. And this is how you should treat them too, is if they don't care about you, then you shouldn't care about them. So that way you're able to make a decision properly that you think is best for you, which in this case is you just vote with your wallet. You don't need to bother, with, worrying about, oh, they're not making single player games and these live service games are these and that, especially for games that are rated, for a more mature audience. So this particular conversation is easily resolved if everybody can just take a step back and just, relax and breathe a little bit in order for them to just say, okay, if I look at the grand picture, single player games are not conflicting with the, live service games. And even though there's a live service game coming, there are single player games that are also going to be coming because all of them have the potential to be successful. They also all have the potential to fail. Think about it, ladies and gentlemen. Hogwarts Legacy was one of those games that there was a lot of controversy around it. The entirety of the internet had differing opinions. Some people wanted to tear the game apart because of the creator of, Harry Potter. Some people pushed up to the point where one of the developers, very prominent developers, Troy Levitt, that was working on the game, had to step away from the studio because they found that he had actually liked a video from a political pundit that people didn't like. So they wanted to, just because of individuals' actions, they wanted the project to fail. So even your single player games are not immune from BS. So for those who continue to make it seem like that, you need to take into account that the game basically scathed by because of a few things. The fans just had enough. Harry Potter fans didn't care about JK at this point. They just wanted to play a Harry Potter game that represented the universe and the world they loved. And then at the same time, it just happened to be that a lot of people had enough of this, nonsense cancel culture that was going on. And they said, you know what, we're going to buy this game on top of your stupid heads. And they went ahead and did it. It was like a huge, for some reason, it was just like a statement against the fact that you're not going to influence a fandom because of your personal choices, your personal preference, or whatever it is. I kind of wonder if this is not the reaction people are getting from Suicide Squad fans, and it doesn't even have anything to do with these things. It's more of a matter of, we're just fans of the universe. Yes, we want an Arkham style game. We will take an Arkham style game as much as you would, but at the same time, we realize that sometimes you get some of what you want and sometimes you don't. It's the time for other games to shine. Warner Brothers themselves are making other single-player games. Rocksteady themselves said they were done making Arkham. This is Stephen Hill's words. He said they were done with Arkham. They were done with Batman in that Arkhamverse. So seeing this, it's a whole different conversation as to maybe this was, what they wanted to make, but maybe not in the style they wanted to make it. And just all these other questions. But I think this needs to be said. I think this needs to be pointed out that there is no conflict. You'll be fine. Thanks for watching the video. Appreciate you guys so much. Peace out.